Welcome back guys to another awesome Odyssey guide, and in this tutorial I want to show you how to spend your mastery points in the most efficient way. When you start with your mastery points at level 50, you will unlock the whole new world of masteries, where you can spend hundreds of mastery points into different categories. But there are in fact so many categories that many people are just overwhelmed by the possibilities they can spend their future points on. Despite the enthusiasm when you first reach level 50, and you can spend your first mastery point, you have to know that 90% of your damage already comes from the gear and from the engravings you have in your gear. The engravings on your items and the passive abilities in the ability tree will account for over 90% of your total damage. So in order to maximize your damage, you should first look for the perfect epic items with the best engravings and upgrade your engravings, and then you can go and check out the masteries to squeeze out the last 10% of it. And of course that also means that 1000 cheated ability points will never be better than having the perfect gear in your build. Once you've taken care of all your gear and your engravings, you should clean up your abilities, because when you want to spend a couple of points into masteries, one or few points won't even make an impact. So you should try to scratch together as many points as possible to put them into your masteries. So reset your abilities and remove all the points on abilities which you do not use regularly. Please also be aware that you can easily get like 40% hunter damage, 40% fire damage, 40% assassin damage, 50% crit damage by only spending very few points in your abilities. And you will need much more points on the mastery section to achieve the same amount of damage increase. So reset your abilities, make sure you get all the passive damage boosts, and also only get the active abilities which you really use very often. When you then start spending your first mastery points, please be aware that the first points you put in every category will give you a much higher bonus than the last points you put in every category. So don't max out those mastery sections, instead only spend a couple of points into each section and spread your points across multiple mastery categories. There is a sweet spot actually around 8 points, 12 points or 15 points which you should spend on your abilities before you max them out. So if you have only a few, rather go for 8 points or 12 points only, and that's fine. Also, the reason that those points are categorized in the three main playstyles, Hunter, Warrior and Assassin, they don't matter at all, because all those abilities, the mastery abilities, will affect your whole character and your whole playstyle, no matter where they are placed. That is very similar to your gear, where all the damage is calculated for your whole build, and also the abilities, where also all your damage is calculated for your whole build. So if there is crit chance and crit damage located here in the Hunter tabs, that will also affect your whole character, and you should also max it out even if you only play as an assassin. Please also be aware that there are some very similar categories to spend your points on. For example, the normal crit chance and the crit chance at full health. The crit chance at full health will actually give you more crit chance per point when you start invest your points on it. But since that ability also degrades, there will be a point where the 10th point in crit chance at full health will give you less crit chance than the first point in the usual crit chance. So you always have to check, especially if you are low on points, if the next point will actually give you a good bonus, or if there is another ability which will give you a better bonus at the start. Also, getting the last 0.1% of crit chance can be way less effective than getting 3 or 5% damage with swords or warrior damage. So in order to spend your mastery points in the most efficient way, your first points should go into crit chance. But you should not use the crit chance here in the Hunter tab, because as just explained, it only gives you 0.5% for the first point. So instead you should first go for the crit chance at full health, because that gives you 1% straight, and the first 10 points will give you almost 8% crit chance. But the 11th point will only give you 0.4% additional crit chance, and that is lower than the normal crit chance here in the Hunter tab, which will give you 0.5%. So in fact you go for the normal crit chance here for a couple of points until you have spent exactly 5 points, and then you have to go back to the crit chance at full health, because that will give you more crit chance per point until you have 14 or 15 points. And then again you can upgrade the normal crit chance here until you have around 12 points on crit chance. Then you will have 4% crit chance and 9% crit chance at full health. These are the recommended points you should put into crit chance at full health and crit chance at first, because maxing out crit chance and crit chance at full health will require 13 additional points for just another 2% of crit chance, which is just not worth it if you don't have enough points for it. So rather use these points to spend them on more important abilities to increase your damage instead. And you should actually not go for crit damage first, instead go for weapon damage first. You can find the weapon damage with swords and damage with daggers in the Assassin tab. The damage with heavy blunts and heavy weapons will be found in the Warrior tab, and the damage with spears and staffs will be found in the Hunter tab. So whatever weapon you use, you should definitely spend your points on your type of weapon which you use first. I use mainly swords, so I will spend 12 points here on damage with swords to increase it up to 24%. After you took care of your weapon damage, then of course you should go for the crit damage at full health. And you should definitely also start with the crit damage at full health, put 10 points on it, because that will give you more damage per point than the normal crit damage. But after the 10th point, you should actually switch to the normal crit damage, because then the crit damage will give you more per point, and then after 5 points on crit damage, switch back to crit damage at full health, and then back to the normal crit damage. So always check which one of those will give you more damage per point until you have put 12 points on crit damage and 15 points on crit damage at full health. That is the perfect foundation now for your first 70 mastery points. And then you should prioritize damage at full health over the single assassin, warrior and hunter damages, because damage while full health will give you damage bonuses to all of those 3 base types. So you should invest 12 points on damage while full health before you go to your assassin or warrior damage. And since you don't need hunter damage at all, you only have to put another 12 points into assassin damage and another 12 points into warrior damage. Because when you use the bighorn bow will use your warrior damage anyway. After you've taken care of all that, you can focus on your secondary damage boosters. For example, here in the Warrior tab we have Armor Penetration. Armor Penetration is really strong, it reduces the enemy's armor and boosts your damage, but it kind of benefits more your arrows instead of your weapons. Then of course, if you want to make a full resistance build, you can get the last 10% of melee resistance, and you can also go for either fire or poison damage here. And of course, don't forget your headshot multiplier. Headshot damage is basically the same as crit damage, but it is only applied when you make a headshot. You should invest up to 12 points in all of those categories. Now you have all the basic stuff you should get in any type of build, and you can start maxing out things. And by that you should also start with the crit chance at full health and crit chance first, then you move on to your weapon damage and to your critical damage, and then to all the other abilities. Just do that in the same order as you have invested your first ability points, and then you have the perfect order to max out your stuff as well. And if you have still points left after you maxed out all the basic stuff, then you can think about more fancy things like damage whenever time is slowed down, picking up some of the adrenaline bonuses, or go for damage on elites and bosses. Or in the warrior tab you could also go for damage restored as health, and in the hunter tab you can also go for the other hunter abilities for damage on distant targets and stuff like that. Or you even increase your hunter damage when you have some items that requires you to convert your hunter damage, but that's only very specific in some certain builds. So I hope you really liked this video. Please don't forget to subscribe, leave me a like, and see you next time.